Perfect. So we are live. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Welcome back to Online Events Made Simple Live with me, Rianne, and today I'm joined with Mukhtar. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Mukhtar Mohamoud. I'm the one of the co-founders of Nuni. And Nuni is like I might as well just go into it. So
Yeah.
Nuni is a live Q&A feedback and insights tool made for organizations using
Mm,
virtual events and hybrid events or even in-person events as a form of engagement with their customers or audience members.
yeah, it sounds great. I've had a little look, and if you're an event organizer listening and you are struggling with kind of engagement, it's definitely something to check out. I know engagement's been a bit of a concern for a lot of people with the, virtual events. What made you kind of create, obviously you're a co-founder, founder of the organization, sorry. What made you come up with the idea? Was this kind of COVID born, or has it been around in the making for a while? Why do you think it was needed?
That's a good question. Yeah, it sort of started. It started quite a while ago now. When I think about it, it's been about a year. So just before the virus hit, so we,
Yeah,
the winter 2019, and
good
so around
timing.
that time, yeah, just it might not be the best timing to start something, but at that time we were sort of toying with the idea of having an engagement tool, some form of the idea originated in university. So from my
Oh,
experience
amazing.
while I was at uni, I noticed that there was a lot of communication issues between the students and the lecturers. And so we
Yeah,
started brainstorming when I graduated. I was having a few conversations here and there with my lecturers, and I started asking, how could we actually improve this communication to sort of improve the learning experience for the students? And so they said that the main thing was we'd be receiving a lot of emails during,
yeah.
post lectures. And so we thought, how could we address the issues that people have whilst they're still in the lecture? So
Mm,
we thought, okay, how about we have like a live Q&A sort of tool that could do X, Y, and Z. So we were just toying around with the idea, but it never really went anywhere until
yeah,
I went on this platform called indiehackers.com. It's a place where you could find, tech co-founders or people post. It's like a forum
yeah.
where
I
people.
get their newsletter actually. It's really, really great.
It's really great, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So it was on there that I met my co-founder David, and so we started toying around. He's a more technical person than I am,
mm,
and so we were just discussing that idea, and then I came across an opportunity to work with TEDx Leicester to sort of be the engagement partner. And so through that we were able to pilot the product and see if the idea was viable, because
yeah,
the if you look at the scenario or the example of the situation, is exactly the same as a lecture, because you've got the audience and then you've got the speakers or the lecture,
yeah.
and so we thought this is a perfect way to actually test it. So we did that, and then after speaking to a few of the speakers and the organizers, they loved it and they thought, okay, we don't want to try it again. And we
Amazing.
thought about doing it in the events industry. We're like, okay, you know what, this might be a viable place to go. And so
Yeah,
we had a few events planned, but the virus hit, and so we thought,
yeah.
okay, how could we how are we going to survive this?
That's brilliant though that you've kind of adapted due to the pandemic, I think. And I think it's great. So coming from I've got a live events background, I know that engagement can be a concern for so many organizers. So actually having that in person, where you have to concentrate, where you can actually get interacted in with speakers and the organizers, I think it's a great idea. And have you learned much from, obviously with the pandemic, I'm guessing you had to kind of change your strategy to fit everyone. Have you, I'm sure you've learned and you've come across a few challenges on the way.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah. There's a lot of change has happened. It's sort of the way it started, because it was so very sort of a scaffolding. There was like it was really really basic the way that we had
Yeah,
originally. You could only log in and ask questions. That was all it was. And so what we ended up spending the majority of last year was sort of just in a sort of research phase where we were working with the few live events. Some went virtual, so we were working with
mm,
them, and we were launching our own virtual events to sort of test the product, and we're having lots
yeah,
of conversations with event organizers. And then we had the opportunity near the end of last year to join the Leicester Startups Accelerator, and that
amazing.
program helped us sort of structure the idea and really create an end-to-end product where someone could go in, they could sign up, they could use the thing, so we could actually say that this is an actual product versus something that's that's not.
Yeah,
And so we had that opportunity, and we launched it not long ago in January on producthunt.com, where we officially launched
amazing.
it with for people to use.
It's really nice though that you've had the opportunity. And I suppose although this past year has been so tough, it's almost pushed you to go into like new boundaries, which I think is really exciting. And I completely agree with you. You said your co-founders, he's a bit more technical, because I'm definitely not technical at all. So it's nice that options are out here, because I would never know how to do the coding or anything if I was to set it up myself. So it's nice as an event organizer that you have these options. Obviously, we're on the kind of roadmap, I'm scared to say it, but out of virtual events and going back into live events. What do you think is going to happen with the event technology sector? Obviously, there's so much technology out there now with things like your live Q&As, but platforms, coding. There's so much you can do now virtually. Where do you see the kind of industry heading?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So from our experience at the moment, or the conversations that we've been having with a few event organizers, there's everybody starting to plan for a transition period, if you want to think, if you want to call it that, where people are exploring how could we bring hybrid sort of nature into our events. And so then what they've done is, because everybody's so used to the good things about having a Zoom, for example, or other virtual platforms, they're thinking, how can we take this technology and bring it into our in-person events? And so the greatest challenge would probably be, especially in the audience engagement, is like, how do you unify the in-person experience and the virtual experience to sort of create a cohesive experience throughout the event? But also, how do you make that in an affordable manner? Because, the people with the bigger budgets, they don't have to worry as much, because, they have the studios, they have the ability to conduct that. But the smaller people, how could they sort of, create their own version or mimic that sort of experience for their events? And so I think that's where the challenge lies, is how that transition period. And also is what could we take from what we've learned throughout the, virtual experience throughout of last year? How, how could we take our learnings there and improve our, virtual physical experience? Because, for example, there was this organization I was talking to once. They are a community organization or a social enterprise, and originally, before the virus, all of their events were in person, and so they only ever looked at their area geographically until, when they went online, they realized, actually, we've got, guests from Jamaica, for example.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, so they're thinking, how can we take that and make that a standard in our offering? And so there's a lot to think about from an event organizer perspective.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you mentioned hybrid, which is kind of the buzzword that always comes up in these podcasts. Obviously, there is going to be this transition period where people are trying to take the benefits, like you said, the massive exposure that you have if you're doing a virtual event, trying to bring that in with your kind of live event aspects. And I guess that's where Nuni can come in, because I'm assuming that it can work for both your live audience and your virtual audience. So it kind of combines them together, because I think from an engagement point of view, and from an event organizer point of view, your audiences, although they're both technically at the same event, they're kind of interacting in a different way. So at least it gives them a chance to kind of bring the audience together and boost that engagement as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the exact plan that we have as well internally, where we're thinking, how could we take advantage of this period where there's a lot of especially from the few people that have been reaching out to us, they're thinking, okay, how could we use Nuni, for example, to help bridge the gap between the engagement? So how can we unify the engagement experience for both of them in a way that's sustainable as well? And so what we've noticed is, as well, say for example, you're streaming it the way we're streaming right now on Facebook, where we're streaming it to a live audience, for example, is you want it to be real time, and you don't want the people that are online to feel as though they are just watching a stream, or they're watching a recording, for example. And so how could you make that experience unified? And one of the ways is to use Nuni.io to really try and sort of bridge that gap with Nuni, for example. We've got the Q&A stuff, but we've also got the feedback thing as well, and the insights. And so what we're trying to do is, how could we show, from an in-person perspective, how can we understand what the engagement was like from there? And so then, as an event organizer, you can then understand, okay, where should I put more effort into? Who's more engaging audience? And so how can I tailor that experience to, encourage the other section, the online or the offline, to be more engaging? And so those are the insights that we want to help event organizers understand and break down.
I think it sounds great, because as we speak, we're actually organizing a virtual event, and I think engagement is a big concern, especially with pre-recorded content. Is finding, like you said, how do you make it feel like an event, opposed to just like watching a stream, like a YouTube video? So I think it's really great, and obviously engagement is a big concern. It's it's a sign of a successful event, right? Obviously, I'm guessing engagement was one of your goals for the setting up the company. What feedback have you had in terms of the engagement? Have you had people saying it's improved the engagement, or is it something that, you know, is a big concern for a lot of organizers?
Yeah, probably from our experience in the past year, trying to understand what that breakdown was like, we were trying to see,
Yeah.
okay, what is it that's going to make an event successful? What is it that you as an event organizer, what do you want, what's an indicator or a KPI for you to
Mm,
think has gone really well? And all of that always revolves around the attendees' experience. What were
yeah.
they thinking? What were their experience like? How engaging were they? And so what we've noticed with a lot of the virtual platforms is they put a lot of emphasis on video, and rightly so, because you want to connect people and make sure everybody's hearing each other. But of course, the main indicator of it being successful is the engagement, and
Yeah.
most of the time that's always a second-hand thing. They're just sticking a Q&A here, or
Yeah.
or a little chat box here, for example. But there's no real way to understand how this thing is actually performed. And so we
Mm,
thought, okay, instead of providing a video platform, like everybody else, so we thought,
yeah.
how about we just focus on the engagement aspect itself? So we've noticed that there's people using Nuni on Clubhouse, for example, for their live.
Amazing.
So yeah, so we probably could have used it here, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. I know.
So yeah, and then we've noticed as well that the main sort of feedback we've heard is a lot of the time the average that we've seen is around a 70% increase on their engagement that the people have
That's
experienced
brilliant.
not using it. So we had one person, for example, said they ended up relying on it for their Q&A because, as a host or as an event organizer and you're in a live situation, it's very difficult to sort of be quick with good questions and pointers,
So
especially with
true.
panel discussion, for example. And so they use Nuni as a prompt from the audience to be like, oh, okay, so and so has asked a question. Oh, this is the
Mm,
upvoted question, for example. How about we focus our conversation on that? And so
yeah.
we want to improve that experience. One of the things that we are sort of working on at the moment is how could we implement, sort of more advanced technology to improve the sort of questions people are asking. And
Yeah.
sort of create, a way where at the end of the day, we want to help the organizer come up with better content for their event, and because better content means better engagement at the same time. So
Yeah.
so that's what that's the focus that we had. And so there's a lot of people using Noon right now where it ends up becoming a sort of the standard sort of event stack that they have their live events and
Yeah.
Newly for their Q&A. And so
I
that's
think it sounds great because, especially you mentioned a chat box. From an event organizer point of view, it's so hard to keep a track of the chat box and then a Q&A. So at least you would then just use your one kind of Q&A function, instead of having to check loads of different places for all of these questions. And I actually think it's a really good way of getting people engaged because, like you said, although you might not have a good question, you might have to try and think of questions. If you have that function, you think, actually, I do want to partake in it, will make you come up with questions as well. So I think it's like a really clever way of trying to get people engaged without telling them you're getting
exactly.
them engaged.
One of the funny things that we found is that when I was speaking to a few of the attendees that used it at one of the events, they said, oh, they end up asking questions because they share the screen with all the questions on it. They
Oh,
end up
amazing.
they write the question to see, oh, can I come up with a good question and see if everybody else agrees? And they want to see
Yeah.
the question fly up to the top. And
Yeah,
so
that's a really good way though of getting people engaged. Like it's almost like a competition, I suppose.
yeah, it's like who can come up with the best question, and it has nothing to do with who's asking the question because we anonymize the questions and you only see what the person asked and not who's asking, and so it sort of encourages the person to come up with a really good question, and
Yeah.
yeah. So one of the other things I was going to say before it slips my mind, what was it again? There was another point that I wanted to make, but it slipped my mind. But the from the experience, oh yeah, I remember now. That we've noticed that when you're hosting an event, for example, and you're promoting it, another area that's they've got is promotion. And so what we
So
found,
true.
when you want to get questions from people, you always say, "Hey, we're doing an event. Hey, if you want to post any questions, please drop us an email." But that's a huge ask for somebody who's just passing by a post, for example, to leave
Yeah.
the app, go to their Gmail, for example, and post in a
Find
question.
the email address. Yeah.
And you can adjust the others. So what we thought is, and there's no real visibility for all the other questions that people are asking. And
Yeah.
so what we thought is, how about we make the Q&A function, asynchronous to the event, and so it doesn't have to be live at that particular moment. You can start the Q&A 3 or 4 or even a week before the event starts, and then you can start
Mm,
sharing your link to say, hey, post in your questions in this link. And so when I go into that link and I look at the questions on there, that could encourage me or help me come up with other questions and like
mm,
questions. And so when it comes to the event starting, because everybody's already familiar with the platform, and you share the link again during your live event, they can already see there's engagement there that's been happening for like
Yeah.
prior to the event. And so you can
I
kick
think that
off
sounds
your
so
business.
great.
Yeah. And
I
so
think it sounds so great.
that's the whole point of it, was how could we make that experience easier. And so all of these little functions, in audience engagement is what we're trying to tweak to sort of improve that experience overall.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like you're hitting the goals and you're really managing to kind of cater for all the audiences, which is brilliant, because I think there are technologies out there that were forced into virtual and now they're thinking, oh crap, actually we're going back to live events. How can I make this work? So I think it sounds like you're definitely kind of catering for everyone out there. If event organizers want to come and find out more about Muni, which I'm sure they will do because I think it sounds great and I'm going to check it out more, where can they come and find you, and how does it work in terms of signing up? Do they need to book a demo, or how does it work?
Yeah, right now it's completely free to use, all our
Amazing.
features. So you can just, if you have an event coming up in a week or 2 weeks time, or even tomorrow, you can, it's really easy to sign up. You just go to newny.io, that's newny.io. You click the, create my free account. There's an onboarding flow there. We ask like 3 questions, of course, come up with your unique URL, tell us, post a picture. We have this thing called a call to action, where you can post if you want to promote something, or if you want to create like a funnel to convert some of your users, for example, for lead generation. There's a call to action, so we help you. We've walk you through to design that, and then you can quickly. So the whole process from signing up to hosting your event is within probably about 90 seconds. You could
That's
go in,
amazing.
and start sharing your link and start asking questions. So it's free to use. You can go in there and just check it out, and play around with it.
Sounds great. And I think that's another thing, like we mentioned, engagement is so important, but time management is so important. And I think when you're finding these platforms and solutions, it's great. But then when you have to go on a demo and then think of your questions and then sign up, it can take hours. And I think there was a stat saying event organizers kind of spend around 16 hours on demos of these solutions. So it's so great to find something that's so quick and so easy. And just like you said, you could set it up for later on, which I think is so important for event organizers to understand that there are solutions out there that don't take hours to set up and go on demos as well.
Yeah, exactly. And what we thought is the main sort of idea that we have at the moment is how can we provide as much value as possible. So we're not thinking about monetization or anything like that right now. The main goal is to improve the offering itself and improve the service itself. And so as an event organizer who has an event coming up, or if you in the discovery phase, for example, for tools out there for your hybrid events in the future, or even a live event coming up, you can just sign up really quickly, play around with it internally. You can even use it as a brainstorming tool, actually, in a meeting, for example. So if you're in a meeting together and you want to quickly throw out some ideas, you can use it internally as well. If you want, you can create 2 different accounts, one for internal use and one for external use as well. So the main things, we just want to figure out how people can use this and how they can improve their audience engagement in this period.
Yeah, no, I think it sounds great. And it's been so lovely speaking, Mukhtar. I cannot believe we're coming up to the 20-minute mark already. I can literally talk for hours. I always say this. I'm such a waffler. But yeah, it's been so lovely speaking. Where can people come and find you if they want to find out more, or find out more about Nene?
Yeah. Find me on LinkedIn. So that's Mukhtar Mohamoud, is just my name. On there, go to Newny. You'll find a link on there as well. Newny.io. You'll find all the information about myself and David, and also the product itself. There's some demos on there, recordings of previous events that people did, just to give you an idea of what it looks like during an event, and see what people have been actually saying in real time, to give you a better understanding. So yeah, you can go in there and start exploring.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining today. And thank you to everyone who either tuned in live or if you're listening on demand. If you need any help with your online events, which I know there's always people out there who need a bit more advice, then feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name's Rianne Berry, or you can email me at rianne@eventmindpro.com, and we'll see you all next time.
Also, thank you for your time.